Hi, Fearless Church. Thanks for tuning in to catch the sermon from this past Sunday. Real quick, throughout the month of April, we will be taking a special offering called the Love More Offering in order to help the Dayton community get through the coronavirus pandemic. We as a church will match dollar for dollar up to $25,000. Our goal is at least $50,000. Every single penny we raise will be given away to local nonprofits that are in need as a result of the pandemic, local small businesses, and smaller churches that need more support during this time. For more information, or if you'd like to give, go to lovemore.befearless.org. Lastly, be sure to join us next Sunday, April 12th, online for Easter, 11 a.m., and feel free to share it on social media. Can't wait to see you there.
We've been in this sermon series talking about how do we take this season back? How do we live in faith instead of living in fear? And so our challenge has been to try to fear less and love more. One of the ways I've felt my life sort of shift and my heart sort of change in this season is that I started noticing that I would take inventory and take stock of my resources. For instance, the other day I was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I found myself rationing out the peanut butter as I went to spread it on the bread. I'm not one who normally does that. I don't really keep track of what we have. Some of you have an itemized list of everything in your pantry. It's in your mind, and when you go to the grocery store, you're restocking. You're like, oh, I only have 17 Eggo waffles. I need to get some more for the kids. Whatever it is, that's never been me. But for some reason, during this season, I have felt myself start to feel the weight of that and keep track of what we have, all the things that are in our house resource-wise. And I think that this is just a natural response in seasons where there's uncertainty, where things are unpredictable. We tend to, during this pandemic, but even other times, we tend to cling to resources as a means of security, as a means of safety, to try to protect our future and try to get control of a situation. I think the reason people are going out and buying so much stuff and trying to stockpile and make sure that they have enough is not because they're greedy. It's because they feel like, and I feel like, and all of us feel like we've lost some sense of control, and that's our way of sort of grabbing that back up. And for you and for me, I think we've started to buy into this mindset that having stuff is equivalent to being safe. In this uncertain season, in this season of fear and panic and all this, we're starting to allow ourselves to believe that if I just have enough stuff, I'll be okay. If I can just store up enough, fill in the blank the way you want to, but if I just have enough of that, I will be safe. And I think for us, this is actually just a natural response that we have as humans when there is like hurt and pain. I'll give you an example from my life. I play drums. If you know me, you know that I love playing drums. I play on our worship team. I can't wait for the day that we're all back together and I get to play and sing and shout out the name of Jesus with all of you in the same room. It's going to be awesome. That's one of the ways that I engage with God best. And so I miss playing drums. I have a drum set at my house. I've still been playing a bunch, but I've been playing drums for about 15 years. And what has happened over that time is I have built up calluses on my hands. When I started playing, my hands are nice and soft as a teenage kid, and I ripped them apart. The drumsticks and the way that they just rub on your hands as you're playing different things, as you learn different styles of music, as you set your drum set up different ways, they just rip the skin off your hands. But your body naturally responds to that pain, to that damage, to that messed up skin by forming calluses. If you could see my hands, if you could feel my hands, like they are rough. They are not nice hands to hold. Sorry, Grace, it's my wife. Like they're just sort of gross hands, but it's just a natural thing that has happened because of the pain that my hands have endured. And I think for us in this season, our way of forming calluses, our way of protecting ourselves, if we're not careful, is going to be a knee-jerk response to the economy going crazy, to some of you losing your jobs, to some of you not being certain about your retirement or your stocks or your investment. All those things, they're now uncertain, and there's pain there, there's hurt there. And I believe that we may form some calluses in some unhealthy ways. I think we're going to grab onto and hold onto and allow our hearts to be tilted towards physical and financial resources in a way that they never have been before. And the issue with that is that the way that we respond in this season will matter. I think for a lot of us, we're trying to keep our heads down and we're trying to get through this season and just make it through the winter so that we can wake up when it's springtime again and enjoy the world when it gets back to normal. But the problem is that if we respond poorly, if we respond by allowing our hearts to feel like if we could just get enough stuff, we'll be safe, if we have negative heart responses in this season, it will change the world that we wake up to. You won't wake up to this nice, warm, sunshiny day. We'll wake up to a much colder world. A world where everyone is much more thinking about, how can I protect myself from ever letting this happen again? The way that we respond in this season, especially when it comes to our physical, financial resources, it matters. It matters in your life because it's going to change the way that your heart works, the way that your mind works, the way that your hands cling tightly to your resources. And if you're not careful, you're going to come out of this season a lot more greedy, a lot more dependent on checking your phone, on checking your bank account. You are going to be addicted to financial resources and making sure that you can have enough stuff to be safe. And so I want to look at what the Bible has to say about our physical resources. If you have a Bible, turn to 1 Timothy chapter 6. Paul is writing this letter. He is a leader in the early church, and he's writing a letter to a young pastor named Timothy. And he says this in 1 Timothy 6. I'm going to read it for us. He says, "People who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and into destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people, craving money, have wandered away from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows." Now, I want to make an important distinction that he makes because I think it matters to how we view this. Paul does not condemn having money. He doesn't condemn having resources. He doesn't condemn being wealthy in any way. Look at what he says in these verses. He says, people who long to be rich. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people craving money wandered away from the true faith. Paul's saying, this is not necessarily a money issue. This is a heart issue. And for you and for me, this is going to be a heart issue that we have to work through when it comes to our physical resources. We're going to have to work hard in this season not to allow ourselves to cling tightly to our money, not because we want the money. It's not about the money, but because our heart craves security, control, and independence in this season. And right now, we feel like we have no control and no security whatsoever. So I want to look at what Paul tells Timothy to do in response to this heart issue of finding our security, finding our safety in our wealth, in our material resources. He says this, 1 Timothy 6:17, jump down a little bit. He says, "Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment." Tell these people to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience true life. The first thing I want to point out that that Paul points out. It jumped out to me now, I think, because of this season. He points out the unreliability of money. He says, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. That's so true in our culture today and in our current season. But then he points them to the heart of the issue in this text. He says their trust should be in God. And he points them to the heart of the matter. Our heart issue of wanting control and wanting security for our future is because we're trusting in ourselves. We're not putting our trust in God. We're not holding on to Him as the anchor in the midst of this storm. We're trying to grab up whatever we can to make sure that we can control it. And I want to remind us that our hearts have to trust in God. He's the only constant variable that does not change. He's the only one. Hold on to Him. Don't put your trust in your resources. And Paul gives us 3 things that he says we ought to do in response to this. They're very simple. They're very easy. You can write them down, but they're in the scripture. He says to be rich in good works, be generous to those in need, and always be ready to share with others. If I had to summarize those 3 things and put them into one main point that we ought to take away from this as Fearless Church in this season of the coronavirus in 2020, I would say this. I would say that we need to pursue generosity, not security. We need to pursue generosity, not security. That's what he means when he says, be rich in good works. Don't trust in your money. Use your money to do good. Be rich in selfless acts when everything around us and the uncertainty causes you to want to be selfish, to want to hold on tighter to your stuff. You've got to pursue generosity, not security, not safety, by being rich in good works, by being generous to those who are in need. Many people have asked, how is this going to be practical? How do we put this into practice? Talking about trusting in God and making sure that we're still focusing on other people in a season where we literally can't leave our houses, or we're not supposed to, except for key reasons and essential personnel, all this kind of stuff. People have asked how to make this practical. And again, I keep telling people, I don't have the answer for you. You have to make it practical for your own life. You have to figure out what pursuing generosity and not security means. But I want to give you some examples. I thought of someone who I was talking to, and they shared some stories of what some people have been doing for them. And I thought, man, those are some practical ways that they're being served by people. My friend Jess is a nurse. She lives in Dayton, but she commutes down to Cincinnati, and she's a nurse manager at a hospital. And so I wanted to have her share a little bit about how people have been helping her, how her neighbors have been reaching out to her, her friends, to sort of give us some practical ideas, some practical examples of how we can be caring for our neighbors in this season. Let's check out Jess's story.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica and I am a nurse manager in Cincinnati, Ohio. As you can imagine, this is a pretty busy and stressful time around here. So one thing that my neighbors have done just to encourage me during this time is really they didn't even give me a choice. They just said, Jess, we want to do something that is practical, and we would really like to make a little bit extra with our dinner every night and give you a plate of that so that you don't have to worry about cooking. It has been such an encouragement, and it really is one less thing that I have to think about, and it's really nice to come home to a hot meal that I don't have to cook for myself. So that's been just a huge encouragement. Another thing is I've had several friends reach out to me, whether it's via text message or little cards, energy drinks, flowers, all kinds of different things, just encouragement, and then letting them know that they're thinking about me during this time. And all of those things have really been a blessing and been encouraging to me and help keep me going.
My favorite part of Jess's story is when she said, they didn't really give me an option. Her neighbors were making dinner. They just decided, we're going to make a little bit extra from what we've already made and just leave it on your doorstep as a way to serve you and to love you in this season. Some of us need to take cues from Jess's neighbors. Don't let people give you the answer no. Some of you have reached out and said, hey, can I help? Or let me know how I can help. Don't do that. Just help people. Be rich in good works. Get something extra for somebody at the store and surprise them with it. Write cards, put them in people's mailboxes. I know that it's in this season, it's going to be inconveniencing yourself to do some of these things, to be rich in good works. It takes more effort to go out to the store because you got to wash your hands and you got to maybe wear some gloves. You have to do all these things to make sure that you stay safe and you're loving your community well by not spreading this. But go the extra mile. Put the extra effort in. Some of you may have to, if somebody asks you for something, you have to shop online, and everyone's experiencing this right now where you put in what you want online, but they may not have those things, and so you may have to go to multiple stores and do multiple pickups or try to get deliveries from different places to find what that person needs, but be rich in good works. Go for it. Figure out how to do it. For some of you, what this might look like is spending some extra time calling those people that maybe are a little lonely and you know they're going to be lonely. Right? That aunt or uncle that every time that they call, you sort of like decline their phone call, right? Like that person, you know who I'm talking about. They're probably lonely in this season. And right now, you don't even have an excuse. You're not even doing anything. Give them a call. Spend some time on the phone with people that you wouldn't normally, because so many people are out of their routines. They're feeling alone. They're feeling abandoned. And we've got to spread hope. We've got to be rich in good works towards them. Another aspect of this, and this is a more serious one, a more difficult one, is the way that most of us have been affected financially. There are some of us listening to this message right now who you have been devastated by what has happened. You lost your job, or your hours were cut, or you had to file for unemployment, or you're a small business owner and you're not even sure if your business will ever recover from this. Others of us, we're fine. We haven't been affected. We've been blessed to still be able to receive a paycheck. There's people all over the map financially when it comes to how they've been affected by this virus. But it reminds me of the early church. Back when Paul was writing these letters, in Acts chapter 2, it talks about the early church, and it says that they had all things in common, and there was no one among them who had need. Those who had resources gave them. Those who didn't have resources received them. Everyone was all over the map in where they were financially and with their resources, but because the church gave and had all things in common, there was no one who had a need. And I wonder what it would look like if in 2020 we tried to have all things in common. We pursued generosity and not security. And we tried to be a little bit generous and open-handed with what God has blessed us with. And for those of you who have been horribly negatively affected, what if your resources and your needs were met because those who hadn't been affected gave? What if the church met the needs of one another and cared for one another in this season? Wouldn't that be a huge testimony to the beauty of the body of Christ? And I don't know how we're going to do that. I don't know that we can coordinate some effort to share all our resources and do all those things. But Pastor Andy Stanley, he said this. He said, do for one what you wish you could do for all. And when I think about that, I immediately think of some people that I know of who are hurting in this season. And I need to think through, what does it look like to pursue generosity instead of security in this season? Because a lot of us, the reality is we're going to get a check from the government. It's going to come, it's going to get deposited in our bank account, or it's going to come in the mail. And my temptation, when thinking about the possibility of getting that money and seeing those dollar signs increase my bank account, my initial desire and my initial reaction is security. It's like, oh, okay, there's a buffer. My initial reaction is not, how can I pursue generosity? Who can I give all this money to? It's a struggle. It's a conversation my wife and I are having, like, what are we going to do with these funds? Because there are so many people who have needs. And our funds aren't going to meet the massive amount of needs that people have. But I'm trying to think, how can I do for one what I wish I could do for all? I would challenge you to think the same. Think through, what does it look like for me to pursue generosity and not security in this season? And here's why I think it matters. Look at the way that Paul ends this section in 1 Timothy 6. He says this in verse 19, by doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience true life. Paul uses the words, a good foundation for the future. And our natural response in this season is going to be to think that a good foundation for my future is security financially. But he kicks that right in the face. He says, no. A good foundation for the future looks like a generous heart. And when you have a generous heart, it leads you to then experience what he calls true life. And I don't know about you, but during this season, I'm not thinking of what we're going through as true life. I'm not thinking of it as this abundant, joy-filled, exciting time. I'm just trying to make it through. But trust me, I believe that if you will have a generous heart during this season, you will experience a joy-filled, abundant life during this season. Because for me, I don't think true life looks like constantly worrying over my finances. I don't think true life looks like being caught up in this pursuit of making sure that I have enough and getting control back, or building up calluses to protect myself for the future so that this never happens again. I think what true life might look like for me is if I were being rich in good works, looking at my neighbors and trying to figure out how can I be generous to those who are in need. I want to be able to look back at this season of time during the coronavirus, years from now, when I look back and I think about the time that I had, I want it to be something that I can describe as, man, I remember that. I gave so much during that season. I invested so much time because I had so much time to give during that season. That was one of the most abundant, amazing seasons of my life. I want to be able to do that. I want us to be able to do that. And the key to it is generosity and having a generous heart. Because here's the last point I want to make. Generosity is contagious. If you choose to go through this season and be close-fisted and hoard your resources and cling to finances as your security, that's fine. But you won't get to see the look on people's faces when you are generous, when you go above and beyond, when you go the extra mile, when you are caring, when you are loving. You will miss out on this true life that Paul says we can experience with a generous heart. I would challenge you. I would push you. Spread generosity during this season. We have an opportunity to wake up to a world that loves each other a lot more on the other side of this, that cares about one another, that sees the way that the church responded during this pandemic. And a lot of the callous people that have looked at the church for so long and said, man, they're all about their money. They just want my money. They're going to see their hearts warm up to the church because of how generous we were. That's what I want for our church. That's how we're going to fear less and love more during this season. Be rich in good works. Be generous to those in need. And always be ready to share.
Hey, what's up, Fearless Church? It's Pastor Chris Williams here, and I am honored to be sitting around the table with my family. I have my wife, Kristell, my oldest son, Christian, and my younger son, Noah. Today I made cinnamon rolls, and we had coffee, and we sat there, the four of us, and we watched the service. And so right at the end, they have these discussion questions. And so for the last few weeks, we just sit there and discuss. And last week we discussed for quite a while. One question led to another. But today we wanted to just kind of have our discussion. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes, and we're going to I'll read these questions out loud, and not everybody around the table has to answer, but we'll just kind of share our responses to this, and want to encourage you, and not just individually, but even as a couple or as a family or even as a community group, to consider these questions and just let them guide your conversation. They don't have to, oh man, 1, 2, 3, and we're done. You just kind of guide the conversation. And so what we do is these questions come up right at the end of the message, as you have seen. And so I'll ask the first one. It says, in what ways have you felt yourself trying to regain control or security during the last few weeks? So really, as we process as a family, and I compare a lot of stuff, I go back to like March 1st, that was a Sunday, and how our life was radically different than it is today. We're doing this recording on Sunday, April 5th. So, man, in just a short time, like 4 or 5 weeks, a whole lot of things have changed in our lives. So what ways do you guys find yourselves trying to gain control or security over these last few weeks? What would you say to that?
Well, for me, for a good long while now, since we've started these online classes, I've been kind of pushing back and devoting more time to literally anything else. Even like I've practiced guitar more, I've played more video games, I've watched more TV, I've done anything and everything to get away from schoolwork. And that's not necessarily a good thing, but at the same time it kind of is, because that means I'm not stressing as much. But basically I'm trying to regain control of my time.
And I think I can kind of attest to the schoolwork too. Like, to gain control, I think what I do is I normally just kind of schedule it. I'll kind of watch the clock, and if it's all like, okay, I'm working from like, noon to about 6 p.m., like I schedule out kind of like when my stopping point is to, kind of be done with school and just kind of do stuff. And then also just to try to maybe get out of the house every once in a while, whether it be grocery shopping with mom or just going out for a walk, because, just want to get some steps in and to walk around. But I think those are kind of few ways that I also try to control a situation that I can't really control.
I care about everyone, and so it's, like for Christian, it was, your spring break is elongated a couple days. Then it was, school's going to all online. Then it was, the semester's done, you got to come move out. Then it was, you've only got a couple days to actually get your stuff out of the dorm. And then, everything's going online, and you've got to change the format. And about the same time, it was, with school's changing format, you had to make sure you got this speed in your house and this device. And so I found myself going, it's okay, it'll be all okay, we'll figure it out, and kind of one thing after another. And I just found myself almost playing that Mary Poppins role of, mom's got it, we'll figure it out, it'll all be okay. And I found my role of trying to make sure everyone had what they needed to succeed in their roles, whether it be student or what does dad need for his role, what do I need to go get, and I was kind of playing that part and almost like trying to, what can I control, what can I do so that everyone else succeeds. And that way I almost felt like I was not intentionally, maybe in some subconscious way, playing God for everyone. Like, I'll do what I need to do in order for you to be able to do what you need to do. And so that was probably what I struggled with the last few weeks.
Definitely. And I think for me, it's just probably just like all you guys, trying to grab a schedule. It's really weird because typically, like the pace of our family, like for Christian, for example, he's away at college, so we will have seen him at spring break, which was early March this year for him, and we wouldn't have seen him again until May. And so when he's home, typically it's kind of like I try to take time off work, or we're going to do extra fun stuff, and it's like, no, now he's living at home. And same way with Noah, busy with school and music and various things that he does. When we get to a Friday, Saturday, we try to, obviously we got chores to do, but then we try to make up for lost time, where it's unique now. Now it's like we get to see each other every day more than probably for years that we've done. And so it's, it's unique. It's like, well, what do you do on a Saturday? I don't know. It's sometimes you end up doing some work on Saturday that because there's just time. And so I don't know, trying to find a schedule. That's probably the biggest one for me. And then the second one, and I really appreciated what God said through Pastor Chris Voltz this morning, just finances. I think for me, I'm always wanting to have less debt, obviously, and more savings. And so the unpredictability, I don't think about April from a financial standpoint at all, but I do start to think a lot about July and the second half of this year. I'm blessed to continue to receive the same paycheck that I received in March, I receive in April. I'm very grateful for that, but that's not the case for a lot of my friends and even family members. And so I know that that's going to have economic impact. And so even though I would say and even think, oh man, I don't love money, I think there's a part of my heart that puts faith and trust in money that I shouldn't. And clearly we read this morning that it is so unreliable, and this is that one of those seasons where it is clearly unreliable. So I think it affects my generosity and makes me want to hoard and save money rather than give it away. So, all right, number 2. In what ways have you been generous during this season or the past few weeks, like say, and how did that make you feel?
I think for one of the things that, generous, and it was more kind of towards our family, and then of course I got some benefit for it, but I got to make dessert kind of for the family, and that was just something that as we were grocery shopping, I just kind of asked Mom, like, hey, is there anything I can do with cooking? And she said, well, maybe not cooking, but maybe you can make a dessert. And that was something that I was like, you know what, that is something I could do. And that was super simple, super easy, and it kind of gave me that, ability to kind of cook for someone else other than myself, being away at college. Like, it was nice to kind of cook something for my family. So I think it, like, something as small as making dessert for family members is something generous that you can do during the week.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good. I think for me and us as a family, so we had our grand opening as a church on March 15th, and that Sunday we went out to a restaurant and ate, and in the restaurant we were literally the only people in the restaurant. And our waiter, who was also the bartender, walked up and he said, it just came across the news that Governor DeWine said we're shutting down. And so he said, so we are actually closing as a restaurant tonight at 9 p.m. and we'll be takeout only. And I think even in that moment, that was one of those realizations that this is huge. So honestly, eating out for our family is a treat. It's something fun to do. It's usually celebrating or just a special occasion. It could be like, oh man, it's Friday night, let's go eat out. So we haven't been able to do that, but we have been doing takeout. And when we do, we tip more than you would normally tip, especially, so, to be honest with you, like, the staff's just bringing one bag to your car. They're not coming back and forth to the table. But we're tipping way more than we normally would. And it does make me feel good emotionally to be overly generous in that way, because I think about that guy that said that, and I just remember his face, and I remember looking on his hand, I saw he had a wedding ring, and to me I thought, man, he's got a wife, may have kids, and his income has drastically changed, because there's no way, I don't know if this is true or not, but to me there's no way a restaurant's doing as much business as they normally do, especially wait staff. And so that's just one example for me. How about Kristell or Noah? Y'all got a response?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was kind of more physical generosity. So just taking care of our neighbors, kind of, hey, do you guys need anything? It's funny, right before all of this hit, I do a lot of our shopping at the warehouse places like Costco, Sam's, stuff like that. And so we had extra things, and so sending toilet paper and things like that out to people who need it, and just all that kind of stuff. And then more recently, it's been checking up on people, hey, how are you doing? I think that this last week when we kind of got the word that it's going to be not weeks, but hey, it's going to be at least through the month of April that we're going to be in isolation, it kind of hit me the emotional, processing is going to be happening. And so just reaching out to people and being hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing today? And just being a person that listens, like doesn't judge, because we all are processing at different stages and places, and being a listening, non-judgmental ear for people to just say, hey, I'm doing okay today, or hey, I am not doing okay today, and I don't know why. I was okay yesterday, but I'm not okay today, or whatever, and just listening and telling them that it's okay to not be okay right now, or it's okay to be okay right now, and just being someone that can offer a time and an ear right now, but then also still, hey, do you need anything? Like, I can drop something off at your doorstep, or things like that. So
very good, very good. So what about the last question asks, just practically speaking, it says, what is one way that we can seek to be rich in good works this week? So it's just real practical. It's like the next 5-7 days or whatever. How can we seek to be rich in good works this week?
Yeah, well, one of the things that our church is doing is partnering with other churches and organizations in the Dayton area with Boxes of Hope. And so we're getting different families, different individuals from our churches, and putting together boxes of food for families in our area that depend on organizations for food. And so those organizations, because of the social distancing, because of the quarantine, aren't able to do those things that, they're not allowing people to come through those organizations. And so the churches are kind of filling that gap. And so families from those churches are going grocery shopping, following all of the rules put in order by the government, but going and purchasing extra food, putting together boxes and delivering them to these churches. And then some families are going to put those in their cars and deliver them to the doorsteps of these in-need families. And so we'll be doing that. And then our church is also going to be doing some stuff for Easter.
I also want to challenge you, moms and dads. So Easter is typically one of those holidays, an extended family holiday. So a lot of times someone will travel in to visit you, or you'll travel to see them. I imagine that's going to be a whole lot smaller. In the church world, Easter Sunday is our largest attended Sunday. And some of that, obviously, a lot of that is we are celebrating the greatest event in the history of the world. And that is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so people that believe in that come and celebrate. But I'll admit, there is a certain percentage that it's just a tradition, very similar to Christmas. And so people come to church, and then guess what they do afterwards? Yep, probably the same thing your family does. They go to grandma's, or grandparents come over, or aunts and uncles, whatever it is, and they'll have some kind of lunch or some kind of dinner. And most families, and when I say most, I'm just saying the majority, I don't know a specific percentage, but they'll do little traditions, whether it's Easter egg hunts, or again, a certain meal that they have together, or Easter baskets, whatever that is. And so here's my challenge to you this week, to think about the good work you can do for your parents, your grandparents. And so what I mean by that is as you guys know, most people that are in their 60s or above, they're very encouraged to stay at home. And I think that that's very wise, and it's been very helpful in containing this pandemic, specifically in our state, the state of Ohio. But I want to encourage you to not do something where they don't have to miss out. So this can be as easy as when you do your Easter egg hunt, whether it's inside or outside, doesn't matter. Go ahead and film it. Take more pictures than you would normally do. If you know how to do Facebook Live, do Facebook Live, so that your parents, who are the kids' grandparents, right, are able to participate and be part of that. And I don't know if it looks as strange as putting your laptop up and when you're sitting around the table eating lunch that day, like actually they eat over at their house, you eat at your house, and you just share. And I know that seems silly, but it will take some time to kind of plan through that. But it's basically saying, no, we're still going to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. We're still going to celebrate Easter together. We're going to be rich in good works. And that means planning and preparing all week long to make sure Grandpa and Grandma get to be part of that, or Aunt and Uncle, whatever it might be. And so I just want to challenge you in that way. I don't know how we'll do that as our family. We don't have family local, so a lot of times Easter is more of a phone call, but maybe this year we FaceTime, or I'm not sure. And obviously our boys are older, so whatever Easter egg hunting we're doing, we usually we do this thing called cascarones. I don't know if you've ever heard that or not, but it's these eggs filled with confetti, and we bust them on each other's heads, and typically it creates a lot of excitement and adventure. And so we'll definitely be doing that. Isn't that right?
Usually involves a lesson on resolving family conflict.
That's right.
All that good
That's
stuff.
right. So maybe we'll film that and upload it and everything. So, hey, well, thank you for joining us in our family discussion as we talk through this and just these questions. And remember, this section, we call it Take New Ground. It's one of our 4 just what we call the Fearless Code. And Take New Ground is this idea that we don't retreat, we advance. We advance in our individual walk with Christ. We advance as a church. And in a season such as this, where we are told by our government, wisely so, hey, limit interaction with people. It's the temptation is to withdraw and just care about you and yours, right? And so that's not the way that we respond at Fearless Church. We take new ground. And so I want to encourage you to pray through this, talk through these questions, think through these questions, and be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always ready to share with others. And so let's take new ground as a church. Love you guys and can't wait to be with you in person, I'm sure in just a few short weeks. God bless and talk to you soon.